Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So I was looking in the latest release notes for the SAP Analytics Cloud, and there is a topic here on the dynamic date and time range filter. So there's something new coming in. Well, I'll keep that for the end of the video. I thought it would be good to have a look together at what this dynamic date range filter is all about, because I often see that people overlook this feature, they don't use it, or they misunderstand how to use it. So I think it would be good to dive into this. So as a sample, I have here an SAP DataSphere model, very simple sales model with some order dates and some quantities. Well, that's good enough for our example today. And as you know, you can just put a filter on this table by clicking here Add Filter, and then, for example, select dimension, country, and now only the country Netherlands will be filtered, and you have only this as a result. So that's very basic, and we can do the same with dates. So we have an order date, we have a list of all the dates that are in this data set. I can select a few, and there we have our filter table. But these filters are of course fixed, so they will never change. So this dynamic date range is something else. It lets you filter on a dynamic input. So it's not the fixed values that determine what the output would be, but it would be, for example, the date that the user is using this dashboard. That would be making up the selection of the order dates in this case. So how would we do that? Well, let's go back to Add Filter, and now instead of order date member, we use order date range. This gives us this window here, and here you can define what range to use for this selection. So by default, it's looking at the year, but I can also use, for example, quarter, month, or day. So let's, in this case, keep this at the year, and I will not do anything else for now. Just set this, and then you will see that here in the filter, it says order date is 2026. And in the results of the table, we only see order dates in 2026. So what happened now was that based on the date type system date, so that's basically today, a selection is made for the whole year. If I would have selected here month, then I would select March 2026. Because today, when I'm recording this video, it's March 15th, 2026. So it will filter the order dates of this month only. I also have the option here to use an offset. So I can also do this for example, a year ago. So then it will select March 2025. So, but what now if we don't want to look at today, or as SEC calls it, the system date, but if we want to use it to have the option to make his own selection on which date should be the key date in this case. For example, the user wants to look at the situation on the last day of the previous month, or at yesterday, or whatever date he wants to choose. So then we go back to our filter, and instead of date type system date, we select this option here, create a custom date. And we can call this whatever we want. So we can call it current date, or we can call it today, or whatever you want to put in here. As a default, I would always use the system date because you want your dashboard to have the most up-to-date results when the user opens it. So let's use date type system date for now. Okay. Well, it now still says March 2025. We are still looking at our example with the offset. So let's put that offset back to the standard. Let's click on set. And now it shows March 2026 again. But you might have noticed here in the filter, we now have this thing in here. Let's pin it to the top. Well, this is not actually a filter. So it's more like let's call it a key date controller or something. Because this is inputting the range for your actual filter. So we're not filtering on March 15 to 2026, but we are filtering on the month of March 15, 2026, which is March. So now if I switch this to a different date, in for example, February, then we will see the results for February. Well, because we are now filtering on a month range, we can also change the details of the selector. We can make this month. If we put system current date back, then March is the default because today it's March 15, 2026. And the user can then unselect this, go to January and see the results for January. So you cannot only use this in widget filters like we did now, but in addition, we can also use this as calculation restrictions. So let's say I make a new measure, add calculation. We select the restricted measure and we call this quantity current year. Then I select my order date dimension. And here I again have the option to choose between the members. Well, we don't want to do that because that's the list of the individual dates, which would result in a fixed filter. No, we want to use a range like this, where we use our current date as our input. And as a result, we want to filter on the range for the full year. So in this case, it will be 2026. Set this. All right, and then we'll have to remove the order date filter. And now you can see what happens. So this is showing all the results that we have. But in my quantity current year restricted measure, we only see results for 2026. Well, let's put this in like this. You can do the same for the previous year. So let's copy this restricted measure, adjust the calculation for last year, and also adjust the range. So here we put in an offset of 1. By the way, you can also look ahead. So that would result in 2027. Let's keep looking back. Okay. And this will give us the results for last year. So this means what you can now do with something like this is copy this, duplicate, take out the quantities and the order dates and compare results for different dimensions. For example, per country or per, I don't know, what do we have here? Department. And then you can put additional measures on top of these restrictions. So I could, for example, add another calculation, doing a comparison of, let's say, current year versus last year. Let's make delta percentage like this. Quickly adjust the formatting. There we go. And when I now change my selection here, which I could put to year, then you will see that that my data results will also change accordingly. So if I go to, let's say 2027, now my current year will be 2027, which I don't have any data for yet. Last year will now be 2026. And yeah, the formula will of course be recalculated every time. So let's put this back. Well, some other ideas that you could put in here are, for example, current year to date selections. So let's put in quantity, order date. And then, well, you see here some presets already. You can use those as well, for example, to date and then year. But be careful, because by default, it's using date type system date and not the current date input control that we put in here. Yeah, that's of course a message that we now get because the granularity of this selector is year, while we need it to be date to make a year-to-date selection. So we have to go back, adjust this back to day. Well, let's go back to the current date as well. Then recreate the new measure. The measure year-to-date. Let's quantity, order date. Select our range, current year, and make sure that we select the right date type. So, and it will always show what the selection will be. So in this case, January 1st until March 15. And you can also tweak this. So you can also make it end at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, like this. So the current year selection. Okay, let's set this. Date. And let's also do that for the previous year. Duplicate. Edit. Let's call it last year to date. So this means we need to add an offset in here to do the same thing for the past year. So it now says January 1st, 2025 until March 15, 2025. Let's set this. Okay. There we go. Well, let's take these two out and put back in order date to make this clear for you what is now actually happening here. Well, let's also clean up these two. So you see now we are selecting March 15th. Current year to date, it's January 1st until whatever we have. And for the previous year, it's doing the same. If I now make a different selection, for example, I go back into February and I choose February 24th, then only that range of dates will remain here. So with this, you can very well make good comparisons between the 2 years in a very easy way. So you don't have to do any scripting. You don't have to set up any prompts or variables or whatever in your BAX BW query or in your SAP DataSphere analytic model. This can all happen in SAC. So the only prerequisite for this is that you have a field that's defined as a date field. Then it will give us all these options to make these dynamic ranges. So what is now actually going to change? So apparently they made an extension of this functionality where they also will look at the rest of the year or the rest of the period that you selected. So in this case, we look at year to date, but what now is added is a feature to also select the rest of the year that you're not including. So let's select here rest of. Then we have current date Feb 24 selected. And the rest of would be then 24 until December 31st. But we can also do that for the month or the quarter. And if we switch on this option, well, you can also do it from tomorrow or the next day. So let's say I'll put this in here, year to date. So then it would be rest of year. All right. So these are all the dates that are past February 24th, but still in this year. So if I go back to, let's say I go back to January 11th, maybe even 10th, because then it would start at 11. So 10 is not included, but everything after that is included in our results. All right, so that's the dynamic date range feature in SAC. Often overlooked, but very powerful. This rest of functionality would be available in the second release of 2026. So I hope this was helpful. See you next time. Bye-bye.